What is going on, everyone? John Pascavage here, and it's time for another Steelhead trip. Facing more early winter, late fall conditions here, and finally got some good precipitation and a few blowouts. What had happened was they got about, up to 12 inches of snow, although the heaviest fell more kind of inland and not as much towards the lake shore. So that happened a few weeks ago, and then we had the snow melt and the runoff from that. However, we also had a good shot of rain last weekend, and that really brought the streams up quite a bit and blew them out, and that also lasted for a few days. So what that means is that we had the lion's share of fish that have been in there, and it's been a great season so far, despite the unseasonably warm temperatures and the really dry fall. But it really helped to move a lot of those fish that were already in there up and further into the streams and spread them out, but it will also open the mouths of the streams up so that more of the fish that were staged can get in. We kind of have a trickle of fresh fish coming in at all times. So anyway, you figure it's a good thing. Anyhow, we are, however, going to change our approach a bit for this trip. The reason for that is, if you've seen any of my earlier videos for Steelhead, I'm big on when it's a little earlier in the fall and the fish are a bit more aggressive, and as I've always preached on, if you look at the fish in the water, they're kind of suspending a bit more. They're not on the bottom. I've always been more light presentations and keeping your presentation at or above the eye level of the fish. We're going to switch this trip more to a little heavier and a little more of a drifting presentation, right? And the main reason for that is, as we move into kind of the winter time and the winter feeding patterns, you're going to see that those fish do tend to actually hug the bottom more and become more bottom related. And the reason for that is, it's a few different things, but primarily their metabolism slows way down. And, just like anybody else, when it gets cold, their metabolism slow, and they're just not as aggressive. They become a bit more lethargic. And, instead of chasing as much as they do, they're gonna hug the bottom in the lower portions of the deep pools, and they're gonna be more relating to that just to conserve energy. So for that reason, it's a little different from earlier in the fall, and you do really want to get your flies down to the bottom of that pool. So gonna do that. Also gonna have my father-in-law Jeff joining us again today. You saw him in my Steelhead video from earlier this fall when we went up, and he did hook several, and he got one really close to landing. I just counted it and I put it in that video, but hoping that get him on some more fish and we can get him to land one this time. But anyway, gonna leave here in a little bit, Saturday morning, heading up, and then we're gonna stay tonight and fish most of Sunday and come back at some time later on Sunday. So glad to have you aboard joining us, and stay tuned. Also, I do apologize in advance for this, but I got a better net. However, it's at the other house about half an hour in the wrong direction. I just don't have time to run and get it, so we are going to call Old Reliable here out of retirement and kind of just make do with it. So I apologize for that, but it'll be all right. There we go. I put a small pheasant tail on the bottom, and he took that. Gotta be careful here. It really sucks that I had to bring this net back into circulation, but it is what it is. Some unforeseen circumstances. Yep, just small flashback pheasant tail. He hit it on the bottom. All right, thank you. Fish on. Blue egg. The blue egg. Blue blood dot. Yep. Got it? Mm-hmm. Thank you. There we go. Frenchie nymph first cast. Yeah. Yep. Even these little. Woo! He's got one. This guy's got one chasing him. There's a fish. So I'm standing right here, and there's like trying to get this fish, and there's one literally right next to him, not even acknowledging me. I've never seen anything like that. I'm standing right here with the net, and he doesn't even care. Oh, not this one. No. This net's got a hole in it. No. There's just kind of sitting there. He is not. Nice. Just gonna beach him here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I think you jinxed yourself by calling it a ghost. Oh, shit. I guess it remains a ghost.
Oh my gosh. There we go. There we go. Double.
He's trying to take you away from here.
Boy.
That's a massive.
Oh, wow. Wow. No!
Oh, shit. He threw you up. Yeah, I bet. Look massive.
Boy. All right, buddy. Where's that buck? Oh yeah, look at that. There we go. I put the blue egg back on. I think that's what he took. What's that? I'm honestly about to just start beaching these because every single time I use that net, he goes right through it. Yeah, he took the blue egg, it looks like. Yep.
Sorry.
That's okay. What's that? No. I took the blue. Yep. That was on fire earlier. They kind of turned off of it.
Pretty fish.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
All right. Successful release.
Yep. I
said successful release. So it was a pretty successful weekend overall. Honestly, it was about perfect conditions. Slightly stained, slightly high water that kind of dropped and was slowly clearing as the weekend went on. So it was almost perfect. I'm going to talk to you a little more about the setup I was using here. What I did was, starting out, I have my leader here. This is about 6 feet of, this is 12-pound Maxima Ultra Green. There's also Maxima Chameleon, which you can use. I just picked this up because it was what was available at the shop at the time, but it works out really well. And the advantage you have of this is, and basically, you know, everywhere you can find the tapered mono leaders, right? The pre-tapered leaders. And, you know, for a while I was using them. They were standard to me. But the big issue is up here, kind of towards the business end here, those leaders are a lot thicker, right? Much thicker. And if you actually look, what they'll do is they will taper down as you go down the length. They will slowly taper down to the end where it's almost the length, it's almost the thickness of tippet, right? So you have all those different thicknesses going on, and the issue with that is when you get into a run or a pool and you're drifting it, it's a common misconception that, you know, that entire water column right down to the bottom, from your indicator down to the bottom, is the current, everything, it's all moving at the same speed. Well, that's not the case at all. In fact, what will often happen is, and you know, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier in the video about how in the winter time, when it gets really cold like this, the fish will tend to group up more in the deeper runs and the deeper holes, and they'll tend to kind of stay more towards the bottom, kind of just hold there. And that's one of the reasons, because the current on the bottom is often slower than the current on the top, right? And if you look at if there's a lot of rain, for example, and you look at it, and you know, the surface of the water, the current, you can see it going. It's on the surface, it's often moving a lot quicker than it is more towards the bottom. And it's almost like, I guess a good analogy would be, if you ever go to, you go to the ocean, go to the beach, and you go swimming in the ocean for a change. You go, you're swimming, and a big wave comes, or whatever it might be, a big wave comes, and if you just stand there and you let it crash over you, it's going to wipe you out and throw you right to the bottom and onto the beach, right? Whereas you might see surfers do this, but if you dive under it and kind of stay towards the bottom, when that wave comes, it's just going to go right over you, and it's going to be nice and calm where you're at, right? It's kind of the same thing here. So for that reason, I switched over to this 12-pound Maxima. I got the 6 feet of it, and then I come down here. I'm assuming you can see this well enough. Coming down here to this is a Blackbird micro swivel, and then I have my tippet, right? I have my tippet. In this case, it was 3X or 4X, a little thicker than I've been going, just because I could get away with it due to the water being a little more stained. And I wasn't quite as concerned with that. In some of the previous episodes, you saw me going with 5X, right? And I didn't really see a need to do that in this episode. And plus, it would just work out a lot better, because it gives me a lot more confidence that a little heavier tippet isn't going to break. So anyway, I got about 12 to 18 inches of tippet, and I start my split shot about 12 inches above that first fly, which in this case, I'm going to kind of go through the flies a little more, but in this case, it was an egg, a blood dot, down to a small nymph. And then I got down here, I have tied to the bend of that first fly, I have about another 12 inches of tippet, and I have that coming down to my other fly, right? And I mean, the other thing is that this is kind of my base. I'll start with 1 or 2 BB size split shot up here, depending on the depth and the current of the water. And then I want to just tick the bottom slightly, occasionally hang up, occasionally lose flies. That's just kind of the nature of the beast, kind of the way things are. But you do need to do that to get down to the bottom, have a shot at those fish at this time of year. But I will also, occasionally I'll put a split shot in between these two in between the two flies, or I'll even put smaller split shot kind of closer to the fly, right? Just to get it down, really get it down and kind of get that look I want, right? And you want to get it down enough so that it does tick the bottom, but not so, you don't want it to get down so quickly that it takes away from any natural action of the fly. So it is a bit of a balance, and it does take a little bit of experimentation to do that in any given situation. But the key advantage here, going back to my little example, is that, and up here I have my, you see up here I have my strike indicator. This is just a thingamabobber. There's a lot of different options here. You can use a bobber style indicator like this. You can use a pegged float. You can use a New Zealand style yarn indicator. You can take this and you can run like indicator mono through here, Euro nymph, tight line nymph, or you can just kind of learn to watch your line. There's a time and place for all of it, I think, but this is kind of what I chose to go with this weekend. And what I did was I put my indicator, I want to about somewhere around 1.5 times the depth I'm fishing. So if I'm fishing, for a run that's 4 feet, for instance, I want that indicator to be somewhere around 6 feet up my line from the flies, and that works out really well. And then the key feature of this rig is going back to what I was talking about with the leaders and how I switched from the mono leader to the Maxima here, is that, well, with those mono leaders, you have all those different thicknesses going on and all those different current speeds, and it's going to be a little more difficult to really, with all those different line thicknesses, to mend your line and get a good steady drift, right? Because you got to mend it and make sure that your indicator isn't dragging your flies, or your flies nothing's really leading the indicator. What you really want to do is you want to get to that point where, the way I tell people to think of it is, you want it to be as if you cut the line right above that indicator and it's just drifting downstream on its own, right? That's the way, if I'm instructing someone, that's the way I want them to think about it. But what this does is, you have this one length of leader here, and it's all uniform thickness, right? It's 12-pound thickness, and then you have your tippet down here. And from your indicator down through your tippet and your flies, you basically have this single length of leader in that single thickness, as well as the tippet. That's all you have. So it's not like you have several different thicknesses of lines in a conventional tapered leader. It's just this, and it makes it that much easier to manage, and for that reason, it helps with a more natural presentation when you're drifting at this time of year. Now, as for the specific flies I was using, kind of the key player of the weekend were blood dot eggs, right? These are the Jeff blood dot eggs. Kind of my base is the size 14, but I'll tie it anywhere from size 10 down to size 20, just depending on obviously water clarity and obviously the speed of the water and just the profile they're looking for. But all the ones I would tie them with the egg color, the egg veil, and the yolk. The big color this weekend was blue. It's just kind of that blue spot, and for whatever reason, blue is a very hot color when the water cools off, and it kind of turns to winter. I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, I've heard sometimes that it's just kind of the drab colors of winter, dark blue, lifeless. And I've also heard that when underwater, if you look at it from a spectrum standpoint, blue is the most visible color under light, as well as in the depths. So it could just be that they see it a lot better as well in low light conditions. I think both those have some merit, but basically that blue was working, as well as steelhead orange as well as yellow. And coming off of that, I used a variety of flies as my trailer fly. My biggie was, I used a lot of these small pheasant tail nymphs, right? Anywhere from size 20 to size 16. Here I have just it's a flashback pheasant tail, just a pheasant tail nymph with a little flash tied into the thorax and the head of the fly. And I was also running a few white death zonkers here. That combination is often a good one to work with when you're tandem drifting like this, as well as squirmy wormies. That worked and caught some fish as well, of course. But anyway, and you'll also notice that conventional wisdom, you'll often put the kind of your point fly, heavy fly up here, and then you'll put, you know, your light fly off of that. I kind of switched it up a bit, and the reason for that is I often like to fish the egg on top rather than on the bottom. This was actually introduced to me. Jeff Blood is known for this rig, as well as the blood dot and the white death, but basically this was actually introduced to me at a Trout Unlimited meeting a few years ago. It was the Spring Creek chapter of Trout Unlimited. I was at one of their meetings, and they had a steelhead guide from a Perfect Drift. I think it was a Perfect Drift Outfitters up in New York. He actually showed off this combo, and he fished it this way. He had the egg on top and whatever else, the zonker, the nymph or whatever off the back of that. And the reason for that is as this sinks, it actually looks like a little minnow or a little bait fish or something, or a small creature kind of chasing that egg around. And it triggers kind of a predatory instinct or even kind of a defensive reproductive instinct in those fish. But anyway, it worked out very well, and just kind of going with it, as you can see, I have another one here. This is a Jeff Blood dot. It kind of sucked up some water here, and you can kind of see that it looks so natural, right? It almost looks, has that translucency to it, and it soaks up water, and it almost looks like an egg complete with a darker colored yolk underwater. And it's just so natural, and the fish seem to love it. So I want to thank you all for watching. Also, kind of a special announcement. We're coming up on my 10-year anniversary on YouTube. That'll be December 28th, 2023. 10 years ago from that date, shot my first ever YouTube video and posted it. Unfortunately, if you go back and try and find that, you won't see it because I had to take it down due to copyright issues. But on December 28th of 2023, I'm going to post a 10 years on YouTube special, and it's just going to be some of the lessons I've learned, and I'm going to hopefully talk about some of the operations of the channel here, some of the things I've learned, some of the mistakes I made, so that you can learn from them, learn from my stupidity, and don't make those mistakes yourself. So be on the lookout for that. But I want to thank you all for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave any comments or any questions down below. Or if you're still not convinced and need to think it over, here's a couple other videos that you might enjoy. But I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day, and catch you on the water next time.